Welcome to On the Bubble Podcast, episode 130. I'm your host, Sebastian J. Wait on with me is my co-host, Yuki Lee Bender. Today we're going to be doing an episode on the BNR that got announced last week and the results of Calling Hong Kong. We also haven't had an episode since Calling Seattle, so we'll recap that at the very beginning. So let's start with that. I guess to start off, we'll have to say congrats, Yuki, for top 8 Calling Seattle.
Yeah, thanks. I brought Syndra. I was one of the one of the highest seeds for a long time, and then I was locked, and then I just lost. I lost 2 games, and then was still in, and then I lost top 8. So I think I went 10-1, and then just lost 3 games.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you came in 7th in the seed. You know who else was doing really well that I'm kind of surprised that didn't top 8? It's Michael Jasker. He won Worlds, and then he brought the same deck to this calling, and he was at table 1 or 2 the whole tournament, right?
Yeah, I played him when I was X1 and put him to the X2 bracket, and I guess he must have lost at least one other game. I'm not sure if he ended up X3 or X4.
Yeah, it's I was surprised when because I wasn't really paying attention to the calling day 2, but at least in the earlier rounds of day 2, I saw you, Jasker, and a couple other known faces in the top tables, and I'm just like, oh wow, they're doing so well on Syndra. And then I look at this top 8 now, and I'm like, where did all the Syndras go?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he ran into there was 2 Kanos at the top tables, so maybe he ran into Kano. Hard to say. I don't know exactly what happened to Jaziker, but yeah, there was several Syndras doing well, and then it seemed like I was the only one that made top 8.
Do you want to quickly run down the top 8 really quick, and then we can talk about your experiences and stuff?
Yeah, so we had a pretty diverse top 8. There was 2 Gravy Bones and then 6 other heroes, so 7 heroes total. I was on Syndra. There was an RKO. I lost to the RKO on stream. You could watch the game. I don't think it's really the best game. I got kind of smashed, but yeah, cool to see RKO topping. Chris Ayali on Kasai ended up winning the whole thing. We have Simon Nielsen on Prism. We also have Zach Miller on Kano and Andrew Lawrence on Acilio. So pretty widespread there. Honestly, a really diverse top 8 for an event that I feel like the chief complaint going in was that the meta was really stale and there was only a few decks.
Yeah, it was a very diverse top 8. And if we looked at the meta breakdown for Seattle, it wasn't it didn't actually feel that diverse. It still looked like the meta breakdown of the stale meta of a lot of Syndra, a lot of Gravy, a lot of Verdance, right?
Yeah. I think we saw Syndra most wrapped, followed by Marionette, followed by Verdance, and then Gravy. So kind of the classic top 3 with Marionette doing well, which sort of made sense because we saw Marionette do well both at Worlds and Valencia. So seeing Marionette second most represented here wasn't a huge surprise. But outside of Marionette, seeing kind of a boom in popularity, mostly kind of the usual suspects.
One other note would be that Kano made the finals of this event, but ended up losing the finals. But didn't Kano still LL because it won some other event somewhere else?
Yeah, I believe Kano won a Battle Hardened, so Kano is gone. Also, kind of funny, this is the second time we've had Kasai versus Kano finals, and Kasai has won, despite the matchup not being very good for Kasai. I think actually maybe the only 2 callings that Kasai have won have been Kasai versus Kano finals. So pretty amusing there. If you watch the game, his opponent just kind of goes for it. Chris's opponent just kind of goes for it, and then is off lethal by 1, and then Chris is just okay, you're dead. He had AB1. He was not tech for the matchup. He did have a very clutch ticket on the chin, the prevent 2 damage on a wildfire at a different point in the game. But yeah, Chris had AB1 and just kind of killed him anyways. And I actually was sitting next to Chris in Swiss, and I was kind of hoping somebody would kill the Kanos because I only had Spell Void 1 in my Syndra deck. I had cut the AB1 boots, and I was like, oh, what's Chris playing? Chris plays Dash.io sometimes. Maybe he'll take care of the Kano for me. And I'm like, oh, Chris is on Kasai. That's less good. I'm like, oh, he's on AP1. That's really bad. I guess Chris probably loses. And then I just hear him and his opponent laughing and being like, yep, That's Kano sometimes. Sometimes you just miss, and I'm like, holy, Chris just like dodged the Kano lethal and then goes to top eight finals and also dodges the Kano lethal.
Wow. I guess Kano has a fail rate, you know,
Yeah.
even if you don't have AV. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So yeah, cool to see Kano kind of go out on a splash on his last calling. Also, congrats to Chris Ayali. He's like a very well-known player, has done really well. I think he's like come in second. Like he came in second at Worlds. He came in second at the calling in Philadelphia. So he's had a lot of good finishes, but I don't know if he's actually like won a big event yet. I think this might be his first or maybe his second. So yeah, shout out to Chris. Really nice guy and cool to see him have a good run.
And Kasai winning is a pretty big deal, I think, once we start talking about calling Hong Kong later in the episode too, right? Like this is one of those decks that didn't get touched in the most recent BNR, and it kind of is like it won a battle hardened back in the Worlds, and also like won this calling Seattle now. This might start to look like this is the best deck in the format.
Yeah, I think there's like still some things that need to iron itself out with the new format, but Kasai does seem like potentially a very good choice and one that I'm personally considering for RTNs. She has a lot of like the good qualities of a deck for RTNs, where she's like very stable, has like kind of a clear game plan, has play into most things. Just kind of like a nice deck to play for RTNs, I think, especially if you're like confident on being able to pilot her. And I don't think she's, you probably want some reps. There's lots of like managing your banish on reds and yellows and managing your gold and copper, but like she's not the most crazy difficult hero either.
Once you make enough coppers, you blood on our hands, and that kind of just plays itself too, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. You have a few game plans between Blood on Her Hands and Raise an Army, and I think Blood Follows Blade was like a really big pickup for her. So between all those tools, she kind of in a pretty good spot, it seems.
Is there anything you want to talk about calling Seattle before we move on and talk about the BNR?
I guess there's like a couple things. I'll say that the event was run extremely well. I think it might just be the best run tournament like I've ever been to for card games. The side events were like also really good, the ones that I played. It just felt like the rounds were like so quick and they were still doing deck checks, but somehow we never went more than like a couple minutes past time. Like I remember seeing the clock and being like, "Oh, it's like 4 minutes until time in the round," and then I was like, I just like might not have time to use the washroom because they were just so quick on the turnaround, which is great, honestly. So yeah, whoever I don't know the judging staff, I suppose, or tournament organizer, whoever had a hand in that, they did a really fantastic job. So just wanted to shout that out.
Yeah, I agree. I'm like used to negative tens on the match timers, at
Yeah.
least in the main events. Not even close, right? Like I think -5 was like -5 minutes is like as long as it been.
And it wasn't like the hugest calling, but we still had 284 players, which is like a pretty decent size. And you would expect some games to go long or whatever. But yeah, no, they were just super speedy. It was really cool.
I guess it also helps that there wasn't really any games that had the deck checks that went all the way to the extra time too.
Yeah, perhaps there's like, some variance in that, or there's not like a long judge call somewhere. Although, again, that could come back to like the judging staff being well prepared that there were long judge calls. Hard to say, but yeah, maybe we got lucky with like where the deck checks and judge calls landed. Very very smoothly run event. The only negative that I'll say about calling Seattle is I wish the prize wall was a little better. It just felt kind of thin. I actually felt like this at Philadelphia too. The prize wall was just like I was just like, huh, I don't really know what I want to spend my tickets on. I wish that we could still get some of the old tokens. Like I would still want to get like Quickens and Embodiment of Earth. Like there's still just like old tokens that I want, but I think it was just like confidence, toughness, war and peace, and like maybe the high seas ones, Golden Cog and Rum. And I'm just like, well, I either have these or I'm not the biggest fan of the War and Peace tokens, and it's like, yeah, it would just be nice if there was like a little more in the prize pool.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit also to do with the organizer as well. like the not like LSS, but the one that's organizing the event. But yeah, I feel the same way when I looked at that prize ball. It did feel kind of thin. It also is a fact of like, all the big item tickets got kind of bought out on the first day as well. I think a lot of the giant cards that people may have wanted got sold out on the first day, and the uncut sheets and all that stuff got sold out on the first day. And a lot of the playmats went out on the first day as well. So I kind of just wish there was a little bit more different things you could get other than like booster packs, but I think there was a little bit less of the things that are like kind of like targeted towards like the regular. I don't know if I would say casual, but just like a more affordable price range, and then all the big ticket items kind of just got like bought out, and like something, I guess a bunch of players must have pooled together their tickets and just picked up all the big item tickets.
Yeah, yeah, it would make sense if that happened. Yeah, because even on day one, I would looked. I was just like, it just like looks small. Like, just even visually, I was like, it just like doesn't look like there's as much. And then by the end, it was like very sold out. So, yeah, a few extra options would go a long way.
You got to Seattle pretty late, right, on Friday? I think on the very beginning of the day, it actually wasn't. It didn't look that bad, and then it got a lot of things just got sold out. I think before you even got there.
That's fair. Yeah, I guess I got there around like 4 p.m. on the Friday, but kind of crazy if a lot of the stock is gone by 4 p.m. on the Friday. So,
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think they were a little bit short on stock, and then whatever they had got sold like immediately.
mhm, yeah, fair enough. Makes sense.
I guess before we move on, I just wanted to say one thing. I played Arachne Huntsman for this call in Seattle. I was so sad I didn't day two. I came 96, sorry, 69th, I think. And top 64 day twos. Obviously, I was XN 3, so I'm dead for top 8 anyways. But I lost my last round for my winning in, and it was such a dumb mistake. I just like forgot to block an attack, took 3 extra damage on like the fourth turn of the game, and then I lose against the Sidra by like 2 points because I just like couldn't convert the hand that I didn't block with. I'm like, oh my god, what am I doing?
Yeah, fair enough. I've definitely had those tournament experiences where I just make a silly mistake and then lose for it.
Yeah, the mistake is so bad that it's just like I think the hand that I ended up converting on that turn was like I had to like dagger E strike for 7, so it was like a 3 card 8 where like if I just block like that hand like minimum converts for 12, right? Because all my cards block for 3.
Yeah, or you can like block 6, E strike for 7.
Yeah, there's just so many things I could have like. There's so many ways I could have played that turn, but they all involve blocking, and I just didn't block one of the attacks for some reason. And I'm just like, what am I doing? I'm just like, I was thinking about that block for like the whole game I was playing, and I'm like, this is gonna hurt me. This is gonna hurt me. This is gonna hurt me. And then Syndra's on their very last hand, and I lose, and I'm just like, I had 2 life. They're literally out of cards in deck.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely tough.
So it was a pretty disappointing loss. Mostly because if I won that game, I would have been the one Arachne that day twos, and that in itself would have been so kind of like satisfying in the sense of like I can at least put some representation on Huntsman on at least like the calling level.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Huntsman's a hero that we've been seeing do kind of okay a few times now. I think Huntsman's just like a solid kind of, I don't know, B tier deck or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's B tier. It's close to B tier, but it's definitely a more playable deck than people give credit to, I think.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, let's move into the main topic. But I guess before that, just want to do our Patreon shout out. So thank you so much to all of our patrons who give back. I know it's like holiday season and your money is stretched thin. So those of you that are supporting us, we really appreciate that. And we couldn't be doing what we're doing without you giving back to the show. And also thank you to all of our listeners who tune in and listen. We really value everybody that comes and listens, and several people came up to me over the weekend and said hi, and that was really nice. So yeah, just a lot of appreciation for our patrons and our listeners. If you want to purchase singles, you can do so through Invasion, one of Canada's biggest retailers, and you can use code YLB5 at checkout to get 5% off your singles. So yeah, really recommend checking them out. They're my kind of number one choice for singles, and they're a sponsor of the podcast. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I guess last thing I'll say is I won't be releasing the. I'm not going to do deckless sideboard for the Syndra deck from Seattle. BNR hit that deck. I don't think you can play exactly that deck without Brand with Cinder Claw, and you can't just make a you can't just make a straight substitution. I think there's a little more involved in that for Syndra. We can talk about that in the main episode. But I probably will try to release something before the holidays of just like my initial thoughts on Syndra, because I have been tinkering with it. Nothing like no complete sideboard guide or anything just yet. It's still a little too early. Kind of have two directions I've been taking the deck, one with blues and one very close to my calling list. And I will kind of post both of those with very, very rough sideboards on Patreon in the coming days, and maybe something to try out. And I hope to have something more comprehensive for RTN season as we head into that once I've gotten a few more games under my belt. But with holidays, it's been a little hard to find the time, and it just hasn't been that long with the bands either. So I don't really have all of the sideboarding figured out yet.
Fair enough, fair enough. And we also don't know what the meta is going to look like yet either, right?
That too, yeah. There's been a lot of uncertainty. We did get a kind of first glimpse into it, calling Hong Kong, which we'll be talking about. So we're starting to see what things look like. But yeah, I think there's definitely some things that are going to take a little bit of time to sort themselves out in the meta.
Yeah, we'll start and talk about the BNR right away. So this BNR, when LSS decided to post this, it was meant to just shake up the format, right? Like this BNR wasn't here to like hit some problem decks or things like that. It was more to, make sure the meta shifts for the RTN season. Throughout the format in the last couple of months, like we kept on seeing the same three decks over and over again, which was Syndra, Verdance, and Gravy Bones. And then they decided to hit each one of these pretty significantly, actually. And I was kind of surprised by the actual card choices that they chose. What was your first impression on just like this whole BNR as a whole?
I guess going into it, I sort of expected them to ban things. I guess at some point they said as much as they would be doing a shakeup in the dev talk. But even before that, there was just so much, I guess, like community demand for bans or a shakeup. Personally, I actually really like this meta. I think that while there was like a few top decks, their relative positions all shifted. Like for a while, Gravy was on top, and then my timeline might be off. Then I want to say Verdance was on top, then Syndra was on top, and then if you look at Seattle, Verdance had kind of a high win rate despite not making top 8, and there was like 2 Gravies in there. And I think a lot of the A-tier decks that we've been seeing do well have shifted around as well, and there's just been some pretty diverse top 8. So I think as far as like week to week micro adjustments, this format was actually pretty good, but I can also understand people being tired of it. And I think as far as like a ban list that's going to shake things up, if that's the direction that we want to go, they did a pretty good job. I think that they kind of like didn't delete any of the decks. Like Slippy kind of got deleted by the Bonds ban. I think that if there was bans like that, I would have been not very happy with it. But they kind of just like took them down a notch. They're a little bit worse. But I think that all of the heroes that got hit are still quite playable, and we see a lot of that in calling Hong Kong, actually.
Yep, I think I agree with you on the general statement, but I think there's one card on here that's quite a big hit in my opinion. And I guess we'll talk about it. It'll be Wrath of Retribution is banned, and also with Brand with Cinderclaw is banned. So these are the 2 cards that got banned out straight from Syndra. Wrath of Retribution being banned is, I think, a pretty big downside for Syndra. Wrath of Retribution used to be like a 0 for 7 at a minimum, and then like it can sometimes be like it feel like a 0 for 11 on its like best case scenarios. It was a legendary, so you only did have a 1 of, and I guess in like the aggro mirrors, it wasn't like guaranteed for you to be able to like pull this off. And I feel like one of the Syndra's biggest strength was that if you played anything that wasn't aggro into Syndra, they almost always got the Wrath of Retribution you, which kind of felt unwinnable if you were playing something a little bit too slow or a little bit too grindy. I'm thinking of someone like Florian and things like that.
Yeah, I think that she lost some of her ceiling into some of the more defensive decks. Like Florian's a good example. I think even something like Gravy, the games can be quite grindy. You often get to Wrath them, and sometimes you get to Wrath them and you still don't get to win if they draw well enough. So I think that the Wrath ban hurts a decent amount. I think if it was just Wrath, Syndrome overall probably pretty okay, but I think the combination of Brand with Cinderclaw with Wrath hurts quite a bit. Brand just hurts the consistency of the deck a lot. You were already playing basically every red starter that you could play. You were playing at least every like decent one, like all the red head jab starters. You were playing those. Um, and you just lost one. And not only did you lose one, but you lost one of the best ones. It makes a second chain link draconic. So that often means being able to buy back a dagger. That means smoothing out a card like Oath of Loyalty. So sometimes you have to like use a fealty somewhere where you just ended up having brand instead. And then you're kind of like down a fealty. So you're kind of like down a starter and like down maybe not 3 fealty but like 1 or 2 fealty over the course of the game, and that adds up quite a bit.
Yeah, there's also like a play pattern of like attacking with Brand at the near the end of the chain and like turning a Snatch Draconic randomly to be able to use the leg piece on it. Things like that. Removing like small things like that is actually quite important for the deck. You know, if Snatch just wasn't Draconic, you can't give it go again, so it's like less threatening. But the moment it becomes Draconic for essentially free for Brand with Cinderclaw, because you're never gonna use fealty on a Snatch just to give it the option to maybe get go again, right? So
I wouldn't say never, but it's like definitely less common.
yeah, like I'll be very surprised if someone has like has 1 or 2 fealties and just goes, yeah, we're gonna make the Snatch Draconic, no cards in hand. That would be crazy to me if someone did that.
Oh, I've made that play quite a few times, but you need to pick your spots.
That's insane.
I mean, it's really good in spots where you just have to strip cards.
That makes sense. That makes sense. You know what? My perspective of Sidra is very different, I guess, because I just don't play aggro decks into it. So I'm like, oh, my opponent attacks with a Snatch. Must block. I do not want to deal with an arsenal.
Yeah, reasonable. Yeah, so I think that Syndra can kind of go a few directions from this. I think one option that I've been exploring is playing blues. It actually probably increases the ceiling of the deck, which helps make up for the Wrath ban because you get to play Spreading Flames and you can have some very powerful Spreading Flames turns. The deck is a little bit less consistent, though, is like the big downside of this. And you're sort of this aggro deck that needs to draw blues and reds in somewhat correct ratios, and that just always has a fail state. Whereas I think one of Syndra's biggest strengths was being mono red and just like super consistent. So that's sort of like the downsides and upsides for building into blues. I think it's pretty decent and there's something there, but the deck probably needs a lot of refinement. I think you also can play a red line deck and maybe just play like throw daggers and accept that throw daggers will be like pitched as a starter somewhat often and can be used elsewhere. And then you need to really kind of max out on your draconic cards. So you might be looking at like 3 Lava Vein loyalties, maximum fealty makers, and all of that. And I think that the list actually feels pretty smooth. I need to play more like actual games with it, but you're losing a few points over the course of the game. Plus you don't have the Wrath spike. And that may not sound like a lot, but I felt like Syndra, even pre-ban, was this deck that if you missed a couple points, it often drastically shifted the game because her Flick Knives endgame is so strong. And despite feeling unfair by pushing Mask and having very good numbers, she was a relatively fair deck. Outside of the Wrath turn, she was like pretty like reasonable output. She wasn't doing like Blood Rush Bellows, Savage Sash, 30 damage turns for the most part. So yeah, losing those points actually just really adds up, and I think might affect her win rate pretty drastically. It's like A sentiment that I've always had with Syndra is like she was one of the most punishing best decks to play because like where Verdant's sometimes you just go like felling, and you win by like 20 life. Most of Syndra's games you do not win by like a huge margin. Is sort of my experience with the deck.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, mostly because Syndra's cards are typically just head jabs, right? And it's kind of hard to make like a 40 damage turn or like a 25 damage turn with just head jabs. Typically, you're doing like 3-3-3-4 plus a flick ends up being like what? A 13-14, 4 card 14, 4 card 15, something in that range. And that's pretty fair in today's standards, honestly.
Yeah, and she does have like some fours, lava bursts are fives. Like she can definitely like push that a little bit. She can do like 20 damage turns pretty reliably, but going much above that is pretty tough outside of Wrath of Retribution turns, even on 5 card hands. Or I guess like if they let you draw off mask, then you can have bigger turns. But yeah, relatively fair and just I think these bands may look small, but probably have a decent effect. That being said, I also think that Syndra is probably still a reasonable deck for RTNs. She may no longer be top tier, but I think she's probably playable, and I expect her to still win, some events.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, moving on. The next boogeyman that got banned was Gravy Bones. I'm gonna say this straight up, man. Not enough. Not enough. This deck needed to get hit more. So the ban was Chart the High Seas. So this kind of gave Gravy Bones the extra ceiling on their high rolls. So like it gave Gravy a an ability to kind of high roll people that Gravy really didn't have other good options at this point, and it kind of feels like an extension of the Tipple ban. So like, it kind of gave it kind of took away the ceiling for Gravies, at least earlier in the game or in the mid game. That like, if Gravy's losing and if they don't hit like a yellow blue off the chart, they might just be losing. They kind of took that away. So the high roll potential of Gravy got taken away. But man, I don't think that was the problem with Gravy. So I don't know. I'm expecting Gravy to be kind of like the best deck in the format now.
Yeah, I think that Gravy definitely got the lightest touch. I do think the chart is very, very strong. With the way that decks were built, it is also another gold generator that gets lost, and as those get more and more, as you lose more and more of them, you're like losing a larger percentage of them. So I will say that I think that the gold loss, and because like you don't get the gold from it, then you also don't get a hook, and then you get that multiple times. You could lose, you know, up to 6 gold over the course of the game potentially by not having this card. That being said, I also think that Chart the High Seas was really, really shaping Gravy Bones lists. You saw almost exclusively blues and yellows being played in them outside of like Conqueror and some D-Reacts. And I think that with Chart no longer in the deck, you actually have a little more space to play reds. And Calling Hong Kong, I saw I want to say like Jacob Clements on red swells, and I think you could even look at like red sloops coming back in the deck as well. So it's definitely not all downside that Chart has left the deck. I think it actually opens up deck building a little bit for Gravy Bones. My guess on why they went light on Gravy Bones is maybe they thought that the upcoming meta would be hostile to him. There are some predators. He does have some very bad matchups, and like Acilio is quite poor. I think Kasai is really quite bad, and we've seen Kasai doing well. So that's kind of like the biggest thing for Gravy Bones is how many decks that are good into him are going to be running around, and can he adapt to that? But I agree that Gravy Bones seems like kind of the logical starting point for the new format.
That is so fair when you put it that way, that he has like a bunch of weaknesses and some of the top tier decks now might be pretty bad for Gravy. But the hero I want to play is Huntsman, Yuki. And I don't know if there's a world I can beat a top level Gravy player with Huntsman. I cannot imagine it. It's crazy how bad that matchup is.
Yeah, but that matchup's never going to be playable. They would have to make Gravy Bones unplayable for that matchup to be playable.
That's not true.
That is true. They would have to ban so many cards for that matchup to be playable.
They just need to ban Remembrance. Just ban Remembrance, man. Like, that card is so unfair.
I would be fine with a remembrance ban, but I do think that that matchup has like a lot of fundamental issues.
Yeah. That matchup has a lot of fundamental issues of like you're gonna be unfavored no matter how you play it. But like the existence of Remembrance in Gravy Bones with a Humperdinck or two makes that matchup just straight unwinnable for the fatigue players. Like we can play Gravekeeping, we can do some like crazy things with like Haunted or Haunter. None of that matters if they keep one Humperdinck and one Remembrance, and you kill the Humperdinck and they Remembrance it back with the Watery Grave trigger on the stack. You just feel like, my god, like I just wasted 45 minutes of my life trying to deal with this Humperdinck.
That's fair. I'd be fine with a remembrance ban, but
Like at least give me an out, right? Like just like, oh my god. Oh, Remembrance is not a fair card. And it's like it's not even relevant for like 99% of the people.
that's fair.
Remembrance is an interesting card though. Like that card's been around in this game for a long time, and it really doesn't see that much play. But when it sees play, it's so powerful.
Yeah, I agree. It's for a very specific role, and usually when it's doing that role, it is very good.
Enough about Gravy Bones. Next card on this list will be Orbeaver Spinneret. So only the blue and the yellow got banned. The red one is still legal, which kind of leaves that kind of just like takes away, what is this hero's name?
Arachne Marionette.
Arachne Marionette. Yeah, it takes away the archetype of Arachne Marionette, where it was just trying to use like knives every single turn and just play an Orbeaver Spinneret kind of like every other turn to rebuy the same Graphene Charisla. That's what the card is called. It was kind of like a very consistent deck, and this deck kind of relied on being able to pitch a blue and attack with Hunter's Clave and the Orb and the Graphene Charisla every single turn. And it was a very powerful deck, and we kind of saw it in the last couple of weeks of this format that Marionette just kind of started climbing up the tier ladder, and I think we can say that this deck was tier 1 when this BNR was dropped. And this does hurt that variant of the deck where you're playing 9 Orbeaver Spinnerets. So it was kind of interesting because this deck just came up is kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, it did, but it had some pretty alarming win rates. I believe it was like 60% at both Worlds and Calling Valencia. So I think that there's like a very strong possibility that if you make the rest of the bans without taking blue and yellow orb weavers, that Marionette is just the best deck. I think there was a lot of people that already felt like Marionette was the best deck going into the Calling Seattle weekend. I think like Brody Spurlock, Michael Hamilton, Jacob Clemens all made top 16 on Marionette, and all felt, from what I understand, thought the deck was very, very good. So yeah, I think that this ban was very heads up and a good decision. I think you still can play the dagger archetype. You just won't get to flick as much, and you may have to use your headpiece a little more often to transform into Orb Weaver, which means you don't get to use it. You still did that sometimes before, but you had a higher chance of just drawing an Orb Weaver naturally and then getting to save it for, like Trapdoor with the like inertia trap, or you could potentially like save it for like a Black Widow kind of play with Kiss of Death. So there were some really strong options that the hat gave you if you didn't have to use it early. So it takes a decent amount off of that deck, and I think that that's probably just a good thing. That being said, I think Marionette's still very good. You can build more stealth. You can still build daggers and just get less good headpiece, or like less consistent use out of your headpiece outside of Orb Weaver. But I think the hero is still very strong.
Yeah, I think they didn't really hit the power level of this card. They kind of just like hit the kind of redundant archetype of this deck. So like, back to the drawing boards for the Arachne players, but definitely a pretty light ban on him. One thing I would say though is I feel like if this deck started becoming more and more popular and people were getting more and more aware of it, I feel like the existence of Ripple Away would have kind of not shut this deck down, but at least definitely gave sideboard options for a lot of the players to try and beat this deck, right? If you were an unexperienced Marionette player, I've I've watched one Marionette player's turn just fall apart because they go or Reaper Spinneret and their opponent responds with a Ripple Away, which means they don't make the Graphene, and their turn can immediately end if they don't have another stealth card.
Yeah, definitely some ways that can go really poorly for you. So yeah, I agree. There was definitely tech for Marionette, but also think taking him down a notch is pretty acceptable.
I agree with that. And this is the last card on this ban list is kind of interesting. I'm not sure how this will affect these decks, but Rootbound Carapace got banned and all colors of it. So Florian and Verdance cannot decompose on the opponent's turn anymore. This is gonna be a kind of a shift in like gameplay now, right? I haven't actually played against any Earth Heroes except for the one Florian at locals recently. But this kind of drastically slows down the rate in which Earth Heroes can put Earth cards in the banish zone. And that's kind of was the main reason why you wanted to play Carapace was that you can get to 8 Earth cards in your banish as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think it did a lot for smoothing out your draw where you sort of like want to decompose 3 times to get online or 2 times to get felling online. And Rootbound sort of meant that if you didn't see any decomposed cards for a little while, and then you saw like a Felling of the Crown and a Rootbound Carapace, you could catch up by decomposing on your opponent's turn, then decomposing on your turn. It didn't take your action point, which was really big. So I think it had like a lot of deck smoothing, and of course, 0 for 4 defense reaction is great, and it's an Earth card that you can then decompose. Rootbound Carapace, like, definitely a really strong card in these decks. That being said, I also think that there's kind of a lot of things making these Earth Heroes strong. Maybe I'm speaking slightly more to Verdance. I'm less sure on the Florian, but I think that Verdance was like not always reliant on her hero power, and she seems quite able to adapt to this ban. I think it might hurt her like Gravy Bones matchup, for example, which was already not good. I think that probably gets worse because that felt like one of the matchups where you wanted to be online as soon as possible to be able to ping down the allies with her hero ability, and that just got harder. Like I feel like Yellow Rootbound was like a decent card in that matchup just for being able to get online faster, and yeah, you don't even get to play the reds anymore. So I think it will have some effects for sure, but I think that she can adapt reasonably by either playing like blue cadaverous tillings to just have more decomposed, like same decomposed density and more blues in the deck. Or I've also seen people talking about like Fate Foreseen as just a replacement for the D React, and maybe you're a little slower getting online, but Verdance is not always so reliant on getting online compared to Florian, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the biggest downside of this banning is that the play pattern of first decompose rootbound, second decompose felling is no longer an option. The first decompose will always have to be an attack. So you can't people won't be able to like start felling of the crowning you on like turn 3 of the game or something now, right? Like it'll be a little bit later, one turn cycle later, which I think is a pretty big. It does give some decks like an extra turn. I'm thinking of someone like Acilio probably has a little bit of a better time against this now that Rootbound's gone.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think Acelia was like already pretty good into Verdance, but yeah, probably even better now.
Yeah, just like playing any deck and just getting, felling on turn 2 or 3 of the game is like so devastating, like to the point where if I play against an Earth Hero, I kind of don't want to do anything on their first turn of the game if I'm going first, just because like if I attack with, let's say, a dagger and they block with like 2 cards just to get Earth cards in the graveyard and leak some damage, I'm just like, oh my god, I'm gonna lose this game.
Yeah, you kind of can attack them turn 0, and both of them have decent ways to get ahead turn 0. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this Rootbound Carapace ban lands. But I guess we can segue into calling Hong Kong. We'll break down day one, day two, and the top eight, but the event was won by Verdance in the hands of OO. So clearly, Verdance not um, can't be hurt that badly by the Rootbound Carapace ban would be like sort of, I think, a pretty logical conclusion to draw from this.
Yeah, that is true. That is definitely true. The thing that I can say about Rootbound being banned and the Verdance winning the Hong Kong was that I feel like Verdance just got a little bit more streamlined and just has to do the thing it wants to do now. What do you think that's like kind of like the right sentiment that you have right now?
Um, kind of. I think that she maybe gains some points in some places and loses them in others, is sort of how I feel. Like, if you are running Fate for Scenes, which I believe OO was, you are just like a little bit. If you don't care about getting your hero ability online that much, you are just like kind of better at blocking because the Fate for Scenes just like always four, and you also get the opt. And I think if you go the other direction where you add like blue cadaverous tillings, you have more blues in your deck. So your deck's actually a little more consistent. And yeah, you have a two block and you don't, decompose on your opponent's turn and all this stuff. But I think that for some of those like kind of mid-rangey matchups where you could really lose by bricking, um, yeah, the added blues just kind of give you more consistency. So while I think that Verdance may be like lost overall, like I think she has to be weaker without Rootbound. I think Rootbound is a really strong card. I don't think it's necessarily like just like flat percentage points off the top. I think she may have actually gained points in some ways and lost points in other ways, and overall lost a few percentage points.
Okay, then the metagame breakdown for Hong Kong. This was I guess, a reasonably small calling. It had 147 players total, and the most represented deck, KO Armed and Dangerous, followed by Gravy Bones. KO had 20, and Gravy Bone had 19 players. So not a huge chunk of the metagame, but definitely the most represented.
Yeah,
I guess we can just go down and just talk about the meta heroes first, or the breakdown first.
sure.
Next on the metagame, we have Kasai at 14 players. We have Marionette at 12, Verdance at 12, and Syndra at 9. We still see the heroes that got hit on this ban list on like the top 10 most played heroes, but definitely their representation got kind of spread amongst other heroes in the format as well. This is kind of exactly what LSS wanted to happen, right? With the bannings of these heroes.
Yeah, I think that this is definitely the intended outcome where it spreads out. I think some of that is from being kind of like a new format. We'll see if I suspect we will get a little more consolidation as we go into RTNs, as there's data, as people start to understand, what are the most powerful heroes in the format. But yeah, I think just like shifting around maybe who's on top and what the representation of those top decks are is kind of what LSS is looking for. It's not going to be like everything changes. You're not suddenly, I heard a lot of people talking about different heroes that might be good. And I think a good heuristic for you is if the hero you were playing was like C tier, it's probably still C tier. Unless there was like a really big reason. Like if you had like a really bad matchup into a top deck and that top deck leaves, which so far it doesn't seem to be the case. I don't think any of the heroes are out of the meta. But if that happened, maybe. But I think for the most part, these decks that are weaker in power level are weaker for a reason. And while they maybe gain a little bit of ground, I don't know. Like if you were significantly worse than Kasai, you are still significantly worse than Kasai. And just because some of the top decks change doesn't mean that you're not still that much worse than Kasai, for example.
I feel like this format might shake up if Gravy Bones specifically leaves the format, because that deck kind of suppresses a lot of really mediocre decks.
I think Gravy and Verdance are the two decks that shape the format the most, for sure.
Yeah, those two. If you don't have a plan or a way to beat those two decks, like your deck's kind of bad.
Yeah.
I'm thinking mostly the Guardians, like the Guardians, playing the Guardians into Gravy or Verdance, or even Sidra feels kind of miserable right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think some of the Guardians have reasonable game into Syndra. Like Victor is quite good, Jarl's decent, but yeah, I see your point.
Yeah. You say decent, but I've I've seen some good Syndra players play into Victor pretty well. So yeah, it's not like such so favored that like Victor should win every time. I don't think it's actually that good.
Sure.
Yeah, it's the more I played the Victor Syndra matchup, like at the very beginning of the season when the meta was like first introduced, it felt pretty winnable. And then as the months gone by, I'm just like, I don't know if I can beat good Syndra players on Victor anymore. I don't know what to do anymore. Like I need to get lucky on my spinals than my Terrace unders. Like there's no other way.
Uh, I think the matchup is not like terrible for was not terrible for Syndra, but I don't know if I would quite put it that way there.
It wasn't like 80-20 like some people made it.
Sure, yeah, yeah, yeah. It was at 80-20, but I don't think it was like Victor had to get lucky to win.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know, man. Once the Syndra did some plays like block 4-6 and then Arsenal pass, I'm just like, how do I beat these Syndra players that have blocks in their deck? Like
Sure.
Syndra blocking for 10 is not fair. Okay, that was just my Victor experience. That's why that's what my personal reason from moving away from Victor Goldmain in this meta was the Syndra matchup specifically, where I thought the Syndra matchup was good, and then it like slowly but surely turned into, oh, the Syndra matchup is like kind of hard to, wow, I'm slightly favored, but I'm not like a 70% win rate into this. I'm like probably like a 60% win rate into it, which isn't somewhere I want to be playing a guardian, to be honest.
Sure, that's reasonable.
30% into Gravy, 60% into Syndra. Verdance is kind of dependent on how good the Verdance is, but man, that matchup's also awful. Don't play Guardians. Yarrow's better. Yarrow's okay.
Yeah, Guardian in a bit of a tough spot for sure until I think once Verdance or Gravy Bones leaves, and Verdance is getting close to LL. Yeah, it could shift. I think if you have like one bad matchup, it's like a lot more reasonable. When you have two bad matchups, it's tough. Okay, so yeah, basically we see a lot of the same things that we saw. We saw KO rise up as a deck that has done pretty well in the tail end of the season and is just kind of like a good aggro deck and relatively straightforward to play. And I think this makes sense. Your Syndra matchup got much closer as people tech for it, but I still don't know if you like wanted to see Syndra, and your Earth matchups were like a little bit sketchy, especially Florian, and I think that those decks got hurt a little bit. So KO seems like a pretty logical choice. And then Kasai, she won the calling in Seattle. She wasn't touched. And if you think Gravy Bones is really good, well, Kasai is great into Gravy Bones. You're very good at farming his allies for copper to fuel big blood on her hands turns. And you can also get raise an army to make your own allies, which are actually not always the easiest for Gravy to deal with, especially now that the yellow and red tipples are gone. Dealing two to something, actually a little bit awkward for Gravy Bones.
Yeah, yeah, very awkward for Gravy Bones. Um, yeah, does I have a question about Kasai. Does Kasai's hero ability work on allies too, or does that only work on hitting a hero? Do you know?
I'm pretty sure this is only hitting a hero, but I can read it. I believe Blood Follow Blade works on. Yeah, Blood Follow Blade is when this hits, create a Centauri Cell Sword, so that one will work, the new one. But then her hero ability is hits a hero, so you can't get the gold off the allies, but you can get your own ally off the allies with Blood Follows Blade, and you can both of the copper generation. Outland Skirmish and Spoils of War work on the allies as well.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's a pretty big upside for Kasai. Just being able to farm the allies to make copper to for your blood on your hands to do all modes is a pretty good way to win on Kasai. So yeah, that would make sense.
That's day one. Going into day two, I guess we'll go by representation. We saw Gravy Bones with 7 copies, Kasai with 6, Marionette with 5, KO with 5, Verdance with 4, and then Victor and Syndra each with 3. Yeah, a lot of the same heroes still doing well. KO maybe I think underperforming. You could say there was 25% conversion rate, only 5 of the 20, whereas like Kasai had 43, Marionette had 42, Gravy had 37, Verdance had 33. So yeah, I think KO may be a bit of an underperformer here. But yeah, outside of that, all the top decks seem to do pretty well. I will note that the Syndras did seem to be at the lower table. So despite there being a 33% conversion rate, there were not Syndras with great records. Whereas I think there was multiple Kasais that were EXO, or Shoma was definitely EXO on Kasai, and then there was at least like multiple in the like XOX1 bracket. So yeah, Kasai had like very good records is like something worth noting.
Yeah, I think that was the same. I had the same sentiment of it. I feel like Kasai was just like hogging all of the top tables, and there were some mirrors that were going on at the very end of day two or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, Kasai overperforming, is that the good term for that? This deck seems really powerful right now.
Yeah, she was the third most represented, and she had one of the highest conversion. She had basically the highest conversion rate of the represented decks. Like we had like Victor with 75, but there was only four total copies. We had 2/3 of Lyeth coming out, but there was only 3 copies. We had like 100% of all of the one Reinars that came out, which was Eugene C. Make it, but yeah, of the decks that had a reasonable representation, Kasai had the highest conversion rate, followed directly by Marionette at 42%. So those two decks did really well. And Gravy also did really well, honestly, 37%.
Yeah, I think, is it still top 64 players day two?
I don't think so. I believe it scales with the number of players. This might be like top 48, if I'm guessing.
Oh, it looks like not 64 players made the. Okay, so 48 out of 147 players. So what is that? Averages, you need to beat 33%?
Yeah, the top third of players.
Okay, so like I guess like the one deck that really kind of like underperformed is just KO, and anyone who has like of the represented decks, if they have a conversion rate of higher than 33%, it's pretty reasonable. So yeah, Gravy Bone's pretty average. Vernon's pretty average. And then I guess yeah, you're right. Kasai, Arachne is the two kind of overperformers for this tournament.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, this I can kind of see the inklings of like where this format is headed.
Yeah. I think Groovy, Kasai, and Marionette all look good. And the hero that I'm gonna mention that maybe doesn't look so good here in terms of representation and top eight, but we've seen do well is Acilio. I think Acilio is a hero to keep an eye out for. Acilio pretty good into a lot of these top decks. Good matchup into Gravy Bones. Good matchup into Kasai. Good matchup into Verdance. You don't like the brutes, so if KO remains a top deck, that's tough. But I think if KO underperformed, you see KO start to fall off. Syndra is not doing as well. That was like not such a great matchup for you. That's going away. I think Acilio could be a real winner and a real force in this meta. And we already saw, I believe Acilio had a top eight in Seattle. Yeah, there was an Acilio in top eight in Seattle, and we've just seen like Acilios in top eight here and there for quite some time now. So I think that's a hero to keep an eye on, and I think could be very well positioned.
Okay, that makes sense. Then do you want to move on and talk about the top eight and how that looked like?
Sure. So we have first seed as Shoma Yamamura on Kasai. I think he only lost like one game in all of Swiss, which is really impressive. Maybe no games. I'm not quite entirely sure. But yeah, very impressive performance from Shoma. And there was also a second Kasai in third place. There was 2 Gravy Bones in the hands of Jacob Clements and Brody Spurlock. And we also saw a Marionette in the hands of Law Wen, a RKO again, so an RKO in Seattle and this event in the hands of Ricardo Diaz, and then a Verdance in the hands of Oo, and a KO Armed and Dangerous in the hands of Teddy Tai. So 6 different heroes, at most 2 copies. The 2 copies were, of course, Gravy and Kasai, and yeah, pretty diverse and honestly pretty similar to the Calling Seattle top 8. Like, there's no Kano because he allowed. There's no Syndra, but there was a KO. I guess there's no Acilio. Yeah, pretty similar. There was a marionette, no prism, but a lot of the same kind of heroes that we've been seeing near the top tables.
Yeah, I feel like the format didn't really. Just looking at the top eight, it doesn't feel like the format shifted that much.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think like maybe exactly which heroes are on top is a little different, but it's a lot of the same suspects and maybe some slightly different A tier decks doing well. But yeah, it's not like we're not seeing the Maxes and Teklovosins of the world running the format.
That would be sweet, but yeah, no, that didn't happen. Maybe Pen. We have some Teklovos and M's coming out. That might shake up the format. Hopefully, maybe. I don't think so, but someone can hope.
Yeah. So yeah, we kind of got our first look at the upcoming meta for RTN season. I think what I would say is if you were on one of these top decks before the BNR, you should feel pretty comfortable still playing that deck. I think Syndra is maybe the one that needs the most work. I don't know if that means that she is the worst. I think that she may have some room to adapt. Flick Knives and Mask Momentum is just really strong when you have unlimited daggers. But I think that Syndra needs to be reworked significantly. Whereas I think that Kasai, Verdance, Gravy, sorry, Marionette, Verdance, and Gravy, yeah, minimal changes to the deck list. Maybe decks will change more over time, but even with just very minor tweaks, the decks are quite playable and strong.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Um, Honestly, this top eight not that interesting to talk about. Is there something you wanted to mention of this top eight?
I guess I wish we could see Lawen's game into Jacob Clements. Marionette into Gravy, traditionally pretty awful matchup, but Lawen did manage to get there on Marionette, and I'm curious. I'm curious what that looked like. We saw that his list was a little more stealth focused. We've been seeing Marionette list experiment with more stealth. We have the Armory deck boots from Slippy that give a stealth card go again and have AB1. And, with the Orb Weaver Spinnerets being gone, it is possible to build more into those stealth attacks. So I wonder if that was part of the equation into Jacob Clemens. But yeah, that's like sort of like the biggest thing that I would say is that we've seen a shift in the Marionette decks. But otherwise, yeah, nothing super surprising.
Then yeah, we'll just move on. I don't have enough information about the exact builds that people were doing or using, so kind of hard to talk about that without that information. So the last little thing to talk about before we close out the episode will be RTN season is coming out basically next week. After this episode's gonna come out, what is your current deck that you are thinking of bringing, or what's your like? Do you have a list of heroes that you might be bringing to these first couple of RTNs?
It's like a pretty broad list. I need to play some games, but Kasai, Gravy, Marionette, Syndra, depending how testing goes. I want to work on Syndra. Those are kind of the heroes that interest me the most. Verdance, I think, is good, but man, the Gravy matchup does not look good.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, that's kind of what I expected. Like, you playing the heroes that are, that did kind of well in this, calling Hong Kong, and I feel like those decks really didn't change that much. So I'm excited to see if there are any new heroes that kind of like emerge from this shift in the bannings. And I kind of hope it does, honestly. I kind of hope that somebody starts to bring some other hero. I was thinking of maybe KO Underhanded Cheat. I know that deck has some issues, but that deck
Yeah,
is sweet. So I can see that deck being slowly moving up on the tier list ladder.
yeah, I think KO Underhanded Cheat is quite strong. Its biggest downsides are your Gravy and Verdance matchups are a little bit tough, but you are actually quite good into most other stuff. So yeah, and you do have some plans for Verdance, like you can threaten to fatigue them, and I've heard that the Gravy matchup is playable, although unfavored. So yeah, you have some bad matchups. I think some of your good matchups are like really good with that hero. Yeah,
Yeah,
KO Underhanded Cheat is a hero that scares me a little bit, honestly, but he's cool for now.
Yeah, yeah. KO has some, what's it called? How would I say it? Has some tools, I guess. Are just powerful in general, right? Like swing big is good, big bully is pretty good. Show of strength, I think that's what it's called. The new 248. Like, man, brutes just have 248s, and KO Armed and Dangerous was is showing off like all of these cards, and KO Underhanded Cheat can also play very similar or the same cards. So, I'm pretty excited about KO Underhanded Cheat. I'm slowly, you know, maybe picking up cards for KO, and it's definitely in the range of the playstyle that I like. So I just want Gravy Bones to be gone, and then I'll be happy. I'll be a happy person.
I sort of hope that there's always a deck that bullies KO underhanded cheat, but we'll see. This is a hero to me that if he is on top of the meta will not be very well liked, would be my guess. I think that he creates some pretty uninteresting games despite being like a cool hero, and I think people are generally excited about him because he's new. I have KO more than almost any hero. I have felt like the game ends in 2 turns. Just because of Mocking Blow and Big Bully and the way that the reviled mechanic works, it's very snowbally, is what I would say. So I feel like you have these games where it's like, well, I'm down 10 life and I'm never going to be able to get it back because KO has a billion D-Rex and has a bunch of armor and is just going to play like 2 card 8 to 10 every single turn of the game. And it's like, yeah, it's just like over. But we have to play like 6, 7, 8 more turns. So we'll see. I kind of hope that there's maybe more ways to combat this. Maybe you can tech your own life gain. Maybe it will be more interesting than I think. But yeah, that's like my chief complaint about RKO. I think more so than Lyath. I think because Lyath has to take off turns, he tends to feel a little less smothering, although he still has a bit of the snowball mechanic. But RKO is extremely snowbally. I also think when you're behind, it's like, man, this mocking blow attacks for 1.
Yeah, 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 that's true. There are ways to like boo yourself, but oh, when Mocking Blow doesn't boo itself, oh, you are in pain.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think there are some close games of RKO to be played, but I do think a lot of the games end up being like RKO wins by a landslide or loses by a landslide, and that is like not. That's kind of exactly the opposite of what I like about Flesh and Blood. I like that a lot of games are close.
Oh, okay, okay. Look, my experience with RKO is mostly with the Huntsman versus RKO experience, and that matchup is really interesting, is what I can say. Because it is a fatigue matchup, and at least like my list of Arachne plays like 3 Fiddler's Green, 3 Sigil Solace, and like just like a bunch of ways to gain life. And if they play D reacts into me, I just go pass. Nice D reacts in hand. Would you like to pitch it on your next turn? And if you make RKO do that enough times, they do not convert for that much.
Yeah, yeah. I think the deck definitely has some weaknesses, and there are decks that have good tools to fight it.
Yeah, Fiddler's Green, really good card.
Yeah, Fiddler's very strong.
Yeah, you block an attack for like 12. You just like dump your hand on their attack for 12, and you're just like, yeah, you want to pump it? No? Sure, I'll gain 6 life. I think Fiddler's Green is my number one most favorite card in this format right now. That card has proven to me that it is a D react. It is a sink below Fate Foreseen. It is one of those, like it's definitely in that range of premium blocking cards like Shelter from the Storm. The card's so good.
Yeah, Fiddler is definitely really strong. Okay. Um, Want to wrap up the episode here?
Yeah, let's do that.
Thank you all for listening. Best of luck to you at RTNs. It's going to be an exciting season. I think there are going to be things to discover and things to figure out. So definitely looking forward to that, and I hope you all are too. More content should be coming out as we head into RTN season. So if you're interested in that, keep an eye out for it. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this episode, and good luck to all of you. We'll see you all next week. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find us on social media. I'm at Yuki Lee Bender on Twitter. Jay is at Ueda J. You can also find me on Blue Sky with the same tag at Yukili Bender. If you want to find us on Patreon, it's patreon.com/onthebobble. And if you want to find us, if you want to email us, we have onthebobble@gmail.com, and you can send your questions and feedback there. But yeah, that's going to be a wrap for this episode, and we'll see you all next time.
Okay, do you have any sign offs?
I tried signing up for Riftbound. It was awful.
Yeah.
They were like, tickets go on sale this day, 8 a.m. Pacific. And I'm like, cool. Where do I sign up? And I couldn't figure it out. And then I saw on Twitter, they're like, oh, more information coming soon. I'm like, okay, I'll go to sleep. They'll have it sorted in the morning. I wake up in the morning. There's still no link. I have to ask around. Somebody I know has the link for whatever reason. I go to the link. It's passworded. We still can't log in. I can't see anything. As we get closer to 8, the link is like loading really slowly, and at some point it goes up on Twitter and you can actually load the website, kind of. I try to load the website, I click and I see like multiple package options. There's an admission, there's like a general admission for $25, there's like a premium admission for $500, there's a competitive, like general, I forgot, standard competitor or something for like $100, and then there's like premium competitor for $500, and I have to pick one of these and click it. And this event, spoiler, this event sold out in like a minute. So I just have to blindly pick one. I'm like, do I want the $100 package or the $500 package? Who knows? I can't look at the options because the website won't load and the tickets will sell out. And also, they didn't have them up beforehand, so there's no way I could make an informed purchase. And so I just blindly clicked the 100, press continue, and the page is like trying to load for several minutes, and then eventually it's just like, I can't load, and then I try loading the main page again with the tickets again, and then by then it's like long sold out. Yeah, it was pretty bad. The website could not handle the traffic even a little bit, and I think having like extremely expensive package options that nobody gets to look at beforehand and just has to buy, they just have to buy blindly, is kind of messed up. It made me really unhappy. I just think that like asking people to drop $500 and being like, too fucking bad, you don't get to look at this, is kind of ridiculous, honestly.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. There were some other issues as well, like the VAT was also included in the Las Vegas checkouts, which is like not a fee, but like I think it's like a tax
Tax.
in the EU that
Mhm.
has to be applied, and that got applied to events for Vegas, which shouldn't have happened, and that was happening as well. Um, I was also trying to sign up for this event, and I didn't have a link before 8. I was just like refreshing Twitter until I did get it, until it came out on Twitter. From what I've heard, if you were in some Discord with like the official Discord for the Riftbound, there was a link posted there exactly at 8, where some people were able to access it at the right time. But on Twitter, I think it came up on like at 8:03, I think is the time, 8:04. And I clicked on the link, basically like within 30 seconds of the post going up, and I couldn't get a seat for the admission either. So yeah, it was crazy. One thing I will say is that the tickets were maybe resellable when the tickets went up. So a lot of the scalpers were just like buying infinite copies of it, or as much as they can. And then pretty quickly, like within a couple hours, the Riftbound, whoever was organizing this, said that your name had to match the receipt that you when you bought the ticket, so you can't resell the tickets. And the moment that happened, I think a bunch of people refunded their tickets, and people who were on the wait list or joined the wait list to join the main event did get their chance to sign up for the event, because I do know some people, some of my friends got the got a ticket through the waitlist system. So that's a
Mhm.
plus, but why are you letting people buy more than one ticket in the first place? Like, why was reselling these tickets even an option in the first place? Those are kind of crazy questions.
Yeah, yeah. I also just think the pricing on these is kind of wild. 100 US to play an event is a lot. And with it selling out so fast, they can probably keep hiking the prices, honestly, if they want to. So I don't know. I
Well,
wasn't super impressed.
100 US isn't that crazy. Like we're paying like $75 to $80 for a calling.
Yeah,
Like,
hundreds a lot more.
well, you got other things with it, right? Like you got.
No,
Did you not get anything else with it?
no,
I
no. If
thought
you pay $500, you got like two booster boxes and a promo.
I thought the general like the main event package came with a side event voucher.
I don't believe so. The $500 one doesn't even come with a side. Sorry, the $500 general admission one doesn't give you entry to the main event, but gives you like four side event vouchers. The $500 like I guess like fabled package equivalent gives you entry into the main event, but no side event vouchers. I think it's really bad. I mean, like I understand that like these promos and playmats like are going for $1 billion right now. New TCG League IP is very popular. As the people that spent $500 probably did fine. I still think that these were like kind of gross.
No, no, no. I am right. I am right. The standard competitive badge came with a main event access and one side event voucher.
Okay, one voucher.
Yeah, so the side event voucher I'm assuming is like worth like $20 or something. So
Okay,
like
okay, okay.
in like retrospect to other TCGs for like let's say Flesh and Blood, this like it's kind of crazy that you have to buy the side event voucher, but yeah, it's like you can kind of think of it as like a $80 $70 main event ticket and like a $20 side event ticket, and then you get um this the last thing on this list is the crazy one. It says one booster box voucher. Have you heard of the booster box vouchers?
Yeah, it's the right to buy booster boxes before other people buy booster boxes.
Yeah, that is actually just crazy to me. Like, what?
Oh, it's so interesting. So the standard one comes with a side event voucher, but if you buy the $500 premium competitor badge, you don't get a side event voucher. So I was right about that one, but the standard competitor voucher gets it. Why does the $500 package not even get a side event voucher? You get like two booster boxes.
Honestly, I don't know, but
It's just like and like you couldn't possibly know any of this beforehand because the thing sold out in a minute and the website wouldn't load. So like I don't know. This is kind of my issue with this. Anyways, yeah, I was not impressed. I do not know if I will be trying to sign up for more Riftbound events anytime soon. Maybe if they fix their stuff, I will try the game at some point. I wasn't, but yeah, I'm kind of okay with it. It's at the same time as Calling Montreal, and I kind of wanted to go to Calling Montreal in a way, anyways, and this made the decision very, very easy.
that is fair. That is fair. Um, I got to buy my standard admission not for the main event, but just to like go to the venue and play side events. I have heard some things about maybe these side events are worth just going for and trying to grind some, tickets and reselling things. So I'm gonna treat this like a closer to like a business trip, and it is in Las Vegas, which is a place that I need to go a little bit more often to try and make a little bit of money for my personal livings. So instead of Montreal, I'll most likely going to Las Vegas to mostly play poker and play some side event Riftbound. So it's like a good. This is like a good excuse to go to Vegas and share a hotel with a bunch of people, so then my trip becomes cheaper too. So yeah, I should go to Vegas, and last year I was really lacking in that sense. Like I didn't go to Vegas at all last year, and mm, my wallet can definitely feel it. So I will. Oh, I'm gonna go to Vegas a lot this year.
Reasonable. All right, that's gonna wrap us up. hope y'all enjoyed this episode. We'll see y'all next time.
Yeah, thank you. Good night.